country for taxes. We're in tax season. Welcome to tax season, right? Especially if you're in America. I'm a financial services copywriter and marketer, so I stay up to date on all things taxes, financing, the banking sector, institutional compliance, all of these things. And that is one of the reasons that I'm about to tell you about this country. And it happens to be the country that I live in. It's called Mauritius. It's in Africa. It's an island in the Indian Ocean. It's south of Seychelles, off the coast of Madagascar, almost parallel to South Africa in its southern hemisphere. And so Mauritius is ideal if you do not want to pay high tax on income that you make in the country. But the great thing is, as a digital nomad, especially with their premium visa, you don't necessarily have to pay tax, because on the premium visa, you're not making money in the country. You're coming in saying, I'm going to make country where all my other clients are in the world. That could be Dubai, that could be Singapore, that could be Ghana, that could be Senegal, that could be North America, that could be Mexico, that could be you have clients in Brazil, wherever, just not specifically Mauritius. And so it's literally a tax haven. But the other piece of information that you need to know is that Mauritius also has double taxation agreements with America and a lot of countries, meaning when I file and pay taxes in America, I don't get double tax for living in Mauritius. This is extremely rare. This usually doesn't happen in African countries, okay? Typically, especially as someone that has spent a large amount of my traveling time in East Africa, i.e. Tanzania, the tax there is like insane. It's like a big tax if you're making the money in the country, but it's not always like in the way of like it's like a legal tax. You'll have like your lease tax for the business, then you'll have the tax that you have at TRA, which is the revenue authority, then you'll have something that we call like the black diaspora tax, which is where like literal institutions will come to you and be like, give me more, give me more, give me more. And the fact that we haven't experienced this here and haven't had to deal with this in our over a year of being here now is just fantastic. Like, the paperwork can just go through without all of this extra black tax, diaspora tax, whoever tax, because they do that to a lot of different people in some regions in sub-Saharan Africa, okay? And so that's one of my favorite things about this specific country, Mauritius. Also, most African countries, their tax rate is not at the low rate of 15% flat. So in Mauritius, there's no capital gains tax when you purchase property. We have in place these double taxation agreements here. And then the other thing is that you have a 15% flat corporate tax rate on the money that you have. Like if you decide to move from the premium visa to the self-employed entrepreneur visa, you're running your own enterprise, it's a flat rate 15%. It doesn't increase incrementally the way it does in the US. In the US, there are tax brackets according to how much you make that will incrementally increase. I believe it starts at like 12% to like 20% to 45% at like the top level. I think even if you make a couple of million a year, it could be even closer to 50%, depending on the specific legislation for that year, the specific industry, and all of your situations that are specific to you. And so this is really a win-win situation. It's a beautiful situation. So if you're looking for like the ideal country to go to in Africa, and you're someone that's serious and understands compliance and understands some of the things that people don't typically look at, like people don't take a full look at what it looks like to move abroad and travel abroad, whether as a digital nomad or you're actually living in a country for like a year or longer. These are things that you have to take into consideration. A lot of it comes with learned experience, which is why we're here to share it with you. And so if you haven't had that learned experience yet, if you haven't lived abroad for 5 years like we have, then this information will be beneficial to you. I want you to check it out. Check out Mauritius as a tax haven. Everybody knows about it as a tax haven across the world. Like, that's notoriously what it's known for. But then we were also talking about in the last video that my husband and I were doing, we were walking around talking about why we choose Mauritius over other African countries. And we were also talking about from an African diaspora perspective. And this time when I mean African diaspora, I'm not talking about African Americans. I'm talking about continental Africans from Cameroon, Congo, South Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, Tanzania, Kenya. Know that they can come here, Zambia as well. Know that they can come here and have a simple institutional process. Meaning there were people that we've met that are like, yeah, we chose Mauritius over over Zambia, over South Africa, over Zimbabwe, because the ease to do business, meaning they were able to get their work permits, their occupation permits, and not face a lot of bribery and xenophobia and a lot of these political, I don't know what to call them, maybe tribal issues that Africa has. Mauritius doesn't experience a lot of that. I actually made a post on Threads. If y'all are on Threads, you can follow along at Tiffy G Writes. I post all business writing content on there, so it's very different. But on Threads, I made a post and I was like, there are only like 5 countries in Africa that I would even live in during this time period, to be quite honest. Mauritius, Burkina Faso, Ghana, Senegal, and Seychelles or Cape Verde. Those are the only countries in Africa that I would live in full time. As a mom of multiple children, as a wife, as an entrepreneur, I don't have time for a lot of the foolishness and games that people like to play, especially like when you're thinking about corruption. There's a lot of games that are played. And so knowing that, I told my followers, like, yeah, there's only a handful of countries that I will even consider being in, and it's for the same reason. When we look at the taxation laws, when we look at the ease to do business, the ease to obtain residence, the friendliness of the people in the institutions. And the thing is, as someone that is traveling, know that you're going to have a different experience than the locals. So the locals may be like, yeah, our country's like very welcoming and all these stuff, and you know, maybe at the restaurants they are, but if you get and deal with banking institutions, you deal with government institutions, you deal with business institutions, and it's not that same anti-corruption that, you know, people boast about and say like, my country's the best, then you may be running in to a bit of issues, okay? And so that's why we continue to choose Mauritius and would only go to the countries that we have just listed. Again, Mauritius, Burkina Faso, because it's literally the nation of the upright citizens. They are like combating corruption very strategically. We love that. Ghana, because they are known to make business easy, even though their legislation can be a little tricky sometimes with like business visas and stuff like that. At the end of the day, they just make it work. Like, they just make it work on paper. They make it work. They're not gonna hound you. They're not gonna boost up all of these extreme, you know, whatever stories to make them inflate the issues. Like, they're just going to deal with you as a proper human being, as a proper descendant of Africa, descendant of whoever you are. And so that's why Ghana. Senegal is same thing, but it's visa free for Americans, similar to Mauritius and Seychelles. Cape Verde, same as Mauritius and Seychelles, okay? Cape Verde, island nation, they have digital nomad visas, but again, the taxation, you're rarely going to find that flat 15% rate in a lot of African countries or just anywhere in the world, period. America definitely doesn't have those rates, especially if you're making over 100K a year. Those rates are increasing, okay? And so this is something to think about. This is something to look at. Feel free to follow me on Threads at Tiffy G Writes, also on Instagram at Tiffy G Writes, if you want to know more about the business and marketing and finance stuff that I talk about over there. But yeah, so this is why Mauritius is my top pick when it comes to international taxation. You need to understand these double taxation agreements. You need to understand how much of your income when you move to a country gets to stay as your income, from the standpoint, especially if you're a large family, especially if you know you're already going to have to pay whatever immigration fees, whatever this, whatever that. You're not, I promise you, you're not going to live the same experience of a citizen that was born in that country, unless you're going somewhere like Ghana or Burkina Faso that's just giving you citizenship. Unless you are actively a citizen, you had better choose your African country wisely, because you're not gonna live the life of a local. You're gonna live the life of, hey, this is a foreign person. Yes, they look like us, but they're a foreign person. And we're going to double black tax, maybe real tax, and then put 4 times that. And there's not a whole lot you can do about it when there's corruption all over. And so that's some food for thought I'll leave you with for today. Let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know if you're going to look into these things. And if you want to get in contact with us, feel free to apply to Black Educators Amplified. We've opened cohort 6 that begins on April 27th, Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern, as always. Our 8-week accelerator, cohort 6, is going to be phenomenal. We cannot wait to see you. Check out the Black Educators Amplified playlist. Check out the Mauritius Africa playlist, and we'll see you in the next video. Shalom, shalom.